My name is Mark Harrison. I'm 42 years old, and for nearly 2 decades, I gave everything to one company. I wasn't flashy. I wasn't loud. I just did my job, every single day on time, without shortcuts. I believed in structure. I believed in building people up. I believed in loyalty. That loyalty almost destroyed me. 3 months ago, I was sitting across the table from a man I had trained from scratch. A man who didn't even know the difference between a compliance memo and a quarterly audit when I met him. Now he was sitting in a leather chair that used to be mine, firing me. He didn't even look me in the eye when he said it. "It's nothing personal, Mark. The company's moving in a new direction." I sat there quietly. No arguing. No yelling. I didn't even ask why. Because I already knew. What Jason didn't know, what no one in that office knew, was that I'd seen it coming. Weeks before he ever made his move, I had started preparing for mine. And in my briefcase that day, I wasn't carrying just my office mug and a half-dead succulent. I was carrying something else. Something that would turn the next board meeting into a bombshell no one could ignore. Something that would wipe that smug little grin off Jason's face. But let me take you back, because if you don't understand the kind of man I was, you'll never understand just how badly they miscalculated me. I walked out that door with a thank you card in my hand, and his entire career on a USB drive. For most of my career, I thought I had it all figured out. I joined Hudson and Drake Consulting at 27. Back then, it was a mid-sized firm, scrappy, honest, and built on old-school values. We weren't chasing trends. We were solving problems the right way. I started in the compliance department, working under a guy named Carl Benson. Carl was sharp, fair, and believed that your work should speak for you. And for years, mine did. By my mid-30s, I quietly built a reputation. I wasn't just the guy who caught internal errors before the regulators did. I was the guy who trained the new hires, fixed broken systems, and always stayed late without being asked. I didn't have a fancy corner office or a LinkedIn profile with buzzwords. But I had respect. People used to say, "If Mark signed off on it, it's solid." That meant something to me. Outside of work, life was simple. I lived in a modest house just outside of Columbus, Ohio. No wife. No kids. Just me and a rescue dog named Porter, part lab, part shepherd, full of attitude. I was okay with the quiet. I liked being the guy people could count on, not the guy who made noise. And then in walked Jason. 29. MBA from somewhere fancy. Designer suits, gelled hair, too many LinkedIn posts about hustle and disruption. When HR told me I'd be training a new associate to shadow me for a few months, I didn't think much of it. I'd trained dozens before. I figured Jason would be another one, eager, green, full of questions. And at first, that's exactly how he was. He asked questions. He took notes. He stayed after hours to understand the details. He even brought me coffee sometimes, saying stuff like, "Man, I hope I'm half as sharp as you by the time I hit 40. I'll admit it, I let my guard down. I started trusting him, teaching him things I'd learned over 15 years. How to track vendor approvals. How to review documentation so nothing slipped past regulators. How to communicate with finance without stepping on their egos. I taught him the right way to do things. And he watched me closely, maybe too closely. The first red flag came during a team meeting when he jumped in and corrected a junior analyst with a line I had used just the day before. Word for word. It wasn't malicious. It wasn't rude. Just oddly familiar. I brushed it off. Maybe he was just absorbing things fast. But then, he started finishing my thoughts, using my analogies, rewriting reports I'd already signed off on and turning them in without credit. Small things. Quiet shifts. Then one day, I walked into the break room and heard him say to someone on the phone, "Honestly, the old guy's sharp, but he's stuck in legacy systems. We're gonna streamline everything once I get the clearance." I paused. My hand was inches from the coffee pot. He hadn't seen me. I didn't say a word. Just walked out and let the words sink in. From that moment on, I started paying attention. He stopped asking questions, started coming in later, delegating things back to me, the very things I trained him to do. Management started praising his proactive energy. I was mentioned less in meetings. A few senior partners stopped making eye contact altogether. I'd been at that firm for nearly 2 decades, and suddenly I was invisible. Thought balloon emotional hook. He used to ask me for guidance. Now he was forwarding me tasks, ones I used to assign to him. One night, I stayed late, partly out of habit, partly because I didn't want to go home and admit that something felt off. I walked past the main conference room and saw Jason inside, alone, with the lights dimmed. His laptop was open. He was scrolling through folders, ones I hadn't shared with him. Compliance audit folders. Internal logs. Files I was personally responsible for. I stood there in the shadows, watching him copy something onto a flash drive. And that's when I realized Jason wasn't just replacing me. He was erasing me. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't panic. I just opened my own backup folder and started digging. After that night, the night I saw Jason copying files he had no business touching, something inside me changed. I stopped being the quiet mentor. I became the silent observer. From the outside, nothing changed. I still greeted people with a nod. Still brought donuts every Friday. Still double-checked every report before signing off. But inside, I was watching everything. And Jason? He was getting bolder. He stopped sitting beside me in meetings. Started interrupting me in front of others, casually, like it was nothing. During a client call, he, accidentally, muted me and pitched his own version of our compliance strategy. The client didn't even realize I was still on the line. And when I pulled him aside afterward to ask what that was about, he just smiled. "Just trying to stay ahead, Mark. You know how fast the industry moves." He wasn't trying to stay ahead. He was trying to bury me. And it wasn't just him. Suddenly, reports I'd submitted were being flagged by management for lacking detail, even though the numbers were airtight. I was asked to revise memos I'd already cleared through legal.it restricted my access to a few folders I'd been using for years, citing a company-wide restructure. There was no restructure. Only a quiet campaign to push me out. Then, things got worse. I received a message from Linda, one of our payroll team members. It was short. Just 5 words. "Hey, did you approve this?" Attached was a vendor payment log, one I'd never seen. But my name was on it. My signature. My timestamp. Everything looked official. Except I'd never touched that document. I stared at the screen for a full minute. Fake documentation. Faked approvals. All under my login. I thanked Linda and asked her not to mention it, not yet. Because if Jason was willing to forge approvals, this wasn't just corporate politics anymore. This was fraud. And he was framing me for it. That night, I stayed at the office long after everyone left. Even the janitorial team had clocked out. I opened every audit log, every timestamp, every internal compliance tracker tied to my name in the last 90 days. And what I found? Dozens of inconsistencies. Documents opened at times I was in meetings. Forms submitted while I was out sick. IP addresses that didn't match my workstation. Jason had been covering his tracks. Sloppily, but deliberately. Speech balloon inner monologue moment, soft voiceover pause. I always thought being good at your job was enough to protect you. But now I realized, if someone wants your seat bad enough, they'll break every rule to get it. I didn't go to HR. Not yet. Because I knew how that story ends. A quiet meeting. A polite brush-off. Then an exit package and a security escort to the parking lot. No. If I was going to fall, I wasn't falling quietly. So I started backing up everything. Every file. Every approval. Every audit record. I created an encrypted drive on a personal server, completely off-site. No one at the company could access it. I logged everything. I screenshotted emails. Screen-recorded late-night access logs. Pulled server backups and flagged mismatched logins. And all the while, Jason kept smiling. Kept making jokes in the break room about outdated systems and retirement age protocols. He thought I was done. He thought I was blind. He had no idea. Then, the final crack. During a Thursday afternoon meeting with the regional director, Jason presented a 30-slide deck outlining his vision for a streamlined compliance department. I wasn't invited to the meeting, even though my team and my data were in every slide. But I saw it anyway. Because someone in IT, someone I'd helped out 5 years ago when he got suspended for a false harassment claim, quietly sent it to me with a note. You didn't get this from me. I read through the deck. Jason had laid out a roadmap to eliminate legacy roles, mine, and transition to younger, agile oversight systems. He called me a legacy risk. Not to my face, but in front of directors, executives, partners. That was the moment I stopped planning a defense and started designing a counterattack. They thought I was being phased out, but I was already 3 steps ahead, and my first call wasn't to HR. It was to internal audit. There's always that one moment. The one that doesn't just confirm your worst suspicions. It cements them. For me, that moment came on a rainy Friday, 2 weeks after Jason's big presentation. I was in the office late, again. Just me and the sound of thunder outside, the kind of storm that rattles windows and makes people leave early. Jason hadn't bothered showing up that day. Working remotely, according to his team status. But when I opened the audit dashboard, just for routine end-of-week review, something caught my eye. A transfer request. 6 figures. Labeled under a compliance-cleared vendor. Only, that vendor had been deactivated 6 months ago. By me. I had the deactivation log, the email thread, the final closeout confirmation. All clean, all approved. But here it was, reactivated, re-verified, and refunded. And guess whose clearance was listed as final sign-off? Mine. Thought-balloon internal monologue, slow, controlled voice. I knew Jason was sneaky. I didn't know he was willing to burn the company to the ground just to get ahead. I pulled up the metadata, timestamps, IP access, edit history. It all pointed to one user, mine. Except for one detail. The session had been active while I was logged into a virtual ethics webinar, a live stream, with my name on screen the entire time. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just career sabotage. This was criminal. Jason had forged compliance on a deactivated vendor, pushed a fake payment through, and used my credentials to do it, all while I was visibly, provably somewhere else. I didn't scream. I didn't call him. I just leaned back in my chair and stared at the screen for a long, long time. And then I started smiling. Not because it felt good, but because I had everything I needed. This wasn't going to be a conversation. It was going to be a reckoning. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't drink. I didn't even call a friend. I just started building a timeline, line by line, lie by lie, and by Monday, I was holding the blueprint to his downfall. I spent the entire weekend putting it all together. Forged files, misused credentials, fake vendor reinstatements, edited audit logs, backups Jason thought were deleted, but weren't. I laid it all out, not emotionally, not dramatically, but like a prosecutor building an airtight case. And once the document was ready, I attached it to an email with a single subject line. Formal fraud disclosure, requesting audit escalation. And I sent it. Not to HR. Not to my manager. I sent it directly to the Executive Internal Audit Office at headquarters. Bypassed everyone else. I didn't want silence. I wanted explosions. He wanted me out of the picture. But I didn't just survive. I turned into the one thing he never saw coming, a witness with evidence. By Monday morning, the war had already begun. The email I sent to the Executive Audit Office didn't just get a response, it triggered a chain reaction. Within 6 hours, I was on a secure Zoom call with 2 senior forensic auditors, a corporate compliance officer, and a legal liaison. No small talk. No hand-holding. Just direct questions, and even more direct silence as they scrolled through the PDF I had sent them. They didn't say much. But I saw one of them, a woman named Cynthia, look up, lean back in her chair, and quietly say, "This isn't just policy violation. This is deliberate fraud." That's when I knew I wasn't crazy. That everything I had suspected was real. And now I had the system on my side. They asked me to stay quiet, not resign, not retaliate, just observe, watch his movements, collect more if possible, discreetly. They told me a full covert audit would be launched in 10 business days. They needed time to get into the system, pull server logs, and prepare a clean operation. Until then, I had one job, act normal. So I did. For the next week and a half, I showed up early. Left on time. Smiled at Jason in the break room like he hadn't tried to destroy my career and steal hundreds of thousands through a fake vendor. He smiled back. Arrogant. Confident. Totally unaware. He even slapped my shoulder one afternoon and said, "Hey, you're taking this transition better than I expected. Good attitude, old man." I just nodded and took a sip of coffee. He had no idea I was already in touch with 3 departments who now had access to his every move. Meanwhile, I kept building my side of the case. Magnifying glass tilted left, I printed physical copies of every digital record, time-stamped, signed, and sealed. File folder, I categorized everything. Altered transactions. Rewritten reports. Conflicting timestamps. Screenshots of him logged in as me while I was provably elsewhere. And his streamlining presentation, which essentially laid out the plan to oust me in corporate jargon. Car file box, I stored everything in a locked fireproof safe at home. And a backup hard drive went into a private storage unit under a false name. Just in case. But that wasn't all. I contacted an old friend of mine, Monica, someone who used to work in our legal department before she moved to another firm. I told her everything, without naming names, and asked a simple question. If someone commits fraud using another employee's credentials, can the company be liable if they ignore the warnings? Her response? If you warn them and they didn't act? Oh yeah. That's not just a lawsuit, that's a corporate liability nightmare. That's when I added one more name to the CC list on my next report. The company's general counsel. Just one email. Quiet. Factual. With all attachments. I didn't say, Jason. I didn't say, fraud. I just laid out the facts and asked, can we get legal clarification on these credential discrepancies? I want to be sure my access hasn't been compromised. That was it. No anger. No threats. Just a trap, set in legal language. And Jason? He was busy basking in his new power. He'd started wearing tailored suits, talking louder in meetings, micromanaging departments he didn't even belong to. He started dropping buzzwords like restructuring agility and interdepartmental optimization. No one knew what he meant, not even him, but they smiled anyway, because they thought he was the future. And I was the past. But what they didn't know was that every word he said was being monitored now. The auditors had gone live. They were reviewing every login attempt, every file opened, every internal message. And I had a front row seat. Thought-a-loon internal reflection, quiet, calm voice. He thought I was just some aging compliance guy. But I wasn't playing the game anymore. I was playing the board. 2 days before the audit was set to go public, Cynthia from the executive audit team called me directly. She said, we're moving ahead. Friday morning? Don't be late. You want to see this. He thought I'd never fight back. But he forgot. I spent my life preventing disasters, and I just turned into one with a face. Friday, 9 a.m. sharp. I walked into the conference room like it was any other day. Gray suit. Neutral expression. No hint of what was about to unfold. Jason was already there, grinning like he owned the building. Leaning back in my old chair. A fancy stainless steel tumbler in one hand, his phone in the other. Hey, Mark, he smirked. Here to take notes? I smiled. Something like that. 10 minutes later, the door opened and everything changed. 3 people entered. Cynthia, from Executive Audit. Marcus, the firm's legal counsel. And someone Jason definitely didn't expect. Amanda DeWitt, Senior VP of Corporate Risk, also known as the cleaner. The one they send when heads are about to roll. Jason's grin faltered for the first time. He sat up. What's going on? Cynthia spoke calmly. Jason, we'll be reviewing several recent compliance issues, including system access discrepancies, vendor reactivations, and credential misuse. He laughed nervously. Wait, this isn't how these reviews normally happen. No one laughed back. They handed him a folder. Thick. Heavy. Inside were screenshots, logs, IP traces, forged documents, internal emails, and one very specific line item. $146,000 payment to a deactivated vendor, approved under false credentials. His face turned white. He flipped through the pages like a man searching for an exit that wasn't there. Then he looked at me. You set me up. I looked him straight in the eye and said, No, Jason. You did that all by yourself. I just made sure someone was watching. Collision, the silence that followed? Deafening. Cynthia laid out everything. How he'd access systems using my login via mirrored virtual machines. How he reinstated fake vendors and funneled payments. How he tried to cover it all up by burying the paper trail and discrediting me. He tried to speak, really he did. Mumbled something about confusion and delegated authority, but Amanda shut it down with a single line. Jason, we have 6 forged documents, a falsified compliance chain, and surveillance timestamps that directly contradict your access logs. We're not confused. Then came the final blow. Marcus, the legal rep, slid a piece of paper across the table. Immediate termination notice, with intent to prosecute. Jason didn't even touch it. His hands were shaking. For the next 10 minutes, he sat there, speechless, as they laid out what came next. Termination effective immediately. Internal investigation forwarded to authorities. Financial recovery plan launched. Blacklisted across partner firms. And just before they stood up, Amanda looked at me. Mark, thank you for your discretion and your diligence. I nodded. Jason didn't look at me again. He walked out flanked by security. No box. No goodbye. Just a hollow face and the quiet click of the door closing behind him. That sound? It was the sound of everything he built on lies, collapsing. He fired me like I was nothing. Like I was just a stepping stone. But I didn't need to scream. I didn't need revenge fantasies. I just needed the truth and patience. Later that day, I was called into Amanda's office privately. She offered me my job back with a promotion. I politely declined. I'm done cleaning up other people's messes. It's time I build something of my own. Jason thought he played me. But the truth is, I taught him everything he knew. I just didn't teach him everything I know. It's been 9 months since Jason walked out of that conference room for the last time. I haven't seen him since. I heard, through someone in HR, that the company followed through with legal action. Quietly settled with vendors. Blacklisted his name internally. Some say he tried applying at a few competitors. Didn't get far. Turns out, word travels fast when the foundation of your success was built on someone else's blood and trust. As for me, I didn't go back to the company. I declined the promotion. Politely. Instead, I took a short trip, packed my bags and drove west for a while. No destination. No emails. Just long roads, old blues playlists, and the sound of tires humming under silence. I needed that. I needed to remember who I was before the betrayal, before I became a man hunting evidence inside the company I once called home. Now I work for myself. I started a small consultancy, focused on helping startups and nonprofits build bulletproof compliance systems. No politics. No office wars. Just honest work done right. It's not glamorous, but it's peaceful. And peace, I've learned, is far more valuable than pride. Sometimes I still think about that kid I trained. Jason wasn't stupid. He was ambitious, driven, but he mistook shortcuts for strategy. He thought success was about stepping on others before they step on you. He didn't understand that real power doesn't shout. It waits. It watches. And when the moment is right, it shows its hand. Quietly. Unshakable. Thought a loon reflection line, soft, emotional. He took my job. My name. My reputation. But he couldn't take my discipline. He couldn't take my preparation. He couldn't take my soul. Looking back, I don't regret training him. That was never the mistake. The mistake was believing that someone like him could ever understand the value of loyalty. But that's on me. Now, I teach differently. I teach slow, careful, and I never hand over everything again. Not because I'm bitter, but because I learned. Droplet final emotional takeaway line. Some people climb ladders. Others build them. And if someone ever tries to knock mine down again, I won't just rebuild it. I'll build it higher, and this time, alone. Direct hit soft CTA, call to action. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you helped. If you've ever been replaced, silenced, or underestimated, know this. You're not weak. You're not finished. You're just getting started. Hit like, share your story in the comments. And remember, the calmest man in the room is usually the one holding the match.